Hello. If you're watching this, I assume you're coming from the Bumpy Ride Displacement Guide, and I will be creating a just general area made completely out of displacements, and this is going to be with floors and walls. I'm thinking either Dust Bowl or Alpine theme. I might do something that has detail sprites, just so I can give a good example of that. For example, here, there's these little symbols here that usually means they have detail sprites. So I want displacements, so I gotta search for blend, and I want to look out for these little dots. Here's Badlands, but actually, you know, I'm quite familiar with Hydro, so I think I'm going to do something like this. Blend rock to grass 004, and then I'm going to increase my grid size and plop down a 10 by 24, 10 by 24 brush here using that texture. Then of course I'm going to come in and make this a displacement. Yeah, the brush outs disappear. Cool. Now this is a pretty large brush. If I go in and try and alter this displacement now, seems alright. Well, you know, apart from this. Oh no. There we go. But if I was to put down a player model, fun fact, you can get them pretty quickly by typing in HWM. As soon as these models load, here they are. It's got a demo man here. So again, if I'm going to edit this displacement, put it back on raise, you can see that it is quite jagged, and that's not what I want. Now I could come in and change this power to 4, apply like that, and that actually increases the amount of triangles in this displacement. But there's a reason you don't want to do that, because I'm not entirely sure as to why this happens. But if you use power 4, it does create issues with both collision and the server. Like, if you use power 4 displacements across the whole map, there's a good chance that your map will crash. And obviously you're not going to want that. So I'm going to revert that. So how can we get more triangles in this displacement and make it not jagged? And that's easy. What you want to do is get this tool right here and just draw a line. And you're going to want to make sure that both of these are white, so that you're not cutting off one part, you're simply cutting them into 2, and hit enter. And bang, you've got 2 displacements now, rather than just 1. And then I want to select both and do it again, this time down this way. There, now I've got 4 displacements. And they're all now a quarter of the size of the original, obviously. But they have the same triangle count as the original. So now, if I were to go back and alter the displacement once again, it's still jagged just because of how much I have raised this up, but it is noticeably much smoother. And of course, you can change these displacements down to be power 2 and cut it up some more, but there's no real need to do that. Power 3 is pretty much the standard. because displacement's just so cheap. So what I want to do is make a kind of canyon here, so I can get a good example here for both walls and floors. So I'm going to smooth that whole thing out. But by doing that, it has actually raised it up a bit. That's just something that happens when you smooth. It tends to go up rather than down. But that's no matter, because I'll be raising it down, lowering it down the middle anyway. So, I'm not actually going to do that first. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this noise button here, and that's going to bring me up with this menu, the minimum and the maximum. And what this does is that it shifts each vertice by a certain amount of hammer units, and it's based on what you put in here. So the minimum, if I say 5 and the max 15, it will move each one of these somewhere between 5 and 15 hammer units. So this is pretty good for getting something that's really rough, but be careful with this, because if I put in something like 0 and then 30, you see this gets really bumpy and really jagged. And what you can do is just smooth that out a bit. Just like that. And then you've got something that's bumpy but still pretty smooth. But again, I don't really want anything that bumpy in the first place. So instead, I'm going to do a little trick of mine, which is to put the minimum at -5 and the maximum at 5. This is what I always do, and it gets it bumpy but not jagged so that I have to smooth it. Secondly, this is, a canyon. It's had a river going through it, so it's going to be eroded in the middle. Oops, that's still unsmooth. It's going to be eroded down the middle, but higher up on the sides. And now you've seen that, oh, it's just kind of stopping here. And I go to smooth, and with face normal, on these ones, I hit Alt right click, changes the direction of it. And now on these ones, I can smooth it, and it gets a nice, really smooth turn into that. And I can do the same thing on this side. Really cool. And then go back to the Z-axis for this. And there we go. We got a nice little dip in this, and it is a bit flat on the bottom. So I'm going to just do that. Get it down a little lower. Yeah, that's nice. And because that's where the water would have been going through, now I got to paint alpha, and I can just spread that through there. But does that make sense? Does all the gravel and the grass down in there make sense? Or would it make sense if I did it the other way around? I think it's better this way. But it's up to you, of course. And actually I'm going to just go around, get some extra detail in here, and actually there's the brush up to size 3, do that again, but practically in reverse. There we go. So that's the floor. That's the floor here done. Generally, stuff like this is pretty easy. It doesn't take much time at all to get some quite interesting geometry. And you'll notice that on these 2D views here, this hasn't gone down or sloped at all. It's still on the same level. That's important to know. So when if I was to like delete this and then line it up with another brush, because I didn't have a displacement there prior, but I wanted to put one there now, I wouldn't try and line it up with this. I wouldn't do this, because it wouldn't work. What you need to do is put it in line with where the other displacements actually are. And actually, I should be doing this. It's a great example. So now this is back to normal. It's not curved like the others, but I can just select them all, hit Sue, and it will do its best to link it up. And it does a pretty good job. Pretty good. But then you'll have to go back and manually edit it. And what it will also do is it will blend the alpha as well. Very useful tool. But I'm going to revert that to how it was because I like it. Next up is the walls. This one is a bit more advanced. If you want a wall leading into the floor, then you'll obviously have to cut it alongside the floors so that it can easily go into that. I don't want it there, I want it here. And let's bring it up. Now that's good. I don't want it on that side. I want it over here and over here. Now typically textures used for walls won't have detail sprites, but what they do have are textures that are blending with the floor, or they don't blend at all. So here's the one that's generally used for hydro style, and that's already looking alright. But the textures looping there. It's looping, not great. But that doesn't matter right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make I'm gonna make these and the top displacements like that, and then I'm gonna cut them down the middle here because I want a bit more detail. And if you feel like there aren't enough vertices for you to work on the vertical walls like this, then you'll do the same thing as the floors and you'll just cut it, but instead you will cut it vertically like this. And I'm actually going to do this. These ones too. Very cool. Now walls, I actually think they're pretty fun to work on. And you can see this is a blended texture, but it doesn't have a blended preview. Some textures are like this, so you just gotta find out what it's like. And thankfully, it's the very same as the one I'm using on the top here, but there is a bit of a, these textures don't line up properly. So what I can do is I can use the rock here, and I can invert the alpha. Bang, lines up perfectly. But that's not really what I want. But, just a little tip. Instead, what I'm going to start out with, I'm going to select all that. I'm going to come here, face normal, have it coming out here. Pretty large radius. And I'm going to pull it out at the bottom. Just clicking in spots so that it's nice and uneven. rather curvy. If you want, you can get in with the lower radius, get it nice and precise. This is something that you should always do because of the way, or at least when working on rock walls, because the way erosion works, it's generally going to be sticking out at the bottom and sticking out at the top. And in regards to that, I'm going to come up here, bring it out at the top a bit. And that is a bit too much, so I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to deselect those and then smooth it a little. Select them again, hit Sue. And you see, because these are actually the same texture, it's done the nice little alpha blend at the top. And already, this is looking pretty good. Pretty good. I'm actually kind of uncertain how it got all these little divots in it. I don't remember doing that. But I'm gonna... still on smooth. I'm gonna do a little more. And that's basically most of that wall done. I'm just gonna add a little bit of noise. Again, you want these to be rather smooth. That's good enough. And then I'm gonna select the top again, face normal. This time I'm gonna do it from the top, so it's vertical, and then I'm gonna go along the edge here. Just getting some nice irregularity. It's a bit too symmetrical. So I'm gonna have this one here going down. And uh-oh. Now that isn't lining up correctly with this. I just hit Sue and it's back to normal. And you know, this one's sticking up a bit, so I'm going to bring it out a little as well. Sew it. Nice. That's not going down quite as far as what I'd like. There we go. And that's that wall done. But the texture at the bottom is still looping, so what I'm going to do, and what you should generally always do in my opinion, is bring up the floor right at the edge of the wall. Not to cover the texture, that was just a pretty good coincidence, but just because it looks nice. It always looks nice. And there we go. That looks great. And I could make a more unique displacement over this side, but instead I'm just going to select these ones over here, copy them over, and flip them. And there we go. Gotta raise the floor over here. But now it's a bit too steep. So I've got to smooth it again. But now it's showing the texture again, so I've got to raise it just a smidgen. And there we go. It's a nice canyon. Another thing I probably should do is raise this texture scale 0.5 or so, then align it to the top. What has happened there? Oh, of course, there we go. Or you can keep it like this. This still looks pretty good. Probably looks better, in fact. Actually, while working with this one, I'm going to come into my alphas. Oop. Turn the brush up to 5, but the value down low. like that. You know what, that didn't turn out that great. So I'm gonna revert that to how it was. I want it to be a bit more over this side because it's sticking out a bit. And then just dot some bits of sand around the rest of it, like that. Yeah. But it's still irregular up in the top here, so yeah, that's looking great. And that's the general trick on how you create basic but very nice looking displacement walls and walls. It's pretty flexible. You know, these don't have to be squares that are directly lining up with one. Well, they do have to be, but you know, I could take this and then come into this tool and make it like this. This would help with curves a bit more. So, and then I could have another one like that. And it would curve around pretty nicely if I were to link them up, which I can probably do just like that. Yep. Nice curvy canyon wall. It's really easy, very, very easy, and yet very difficult. It's really hard to describe, but hopefully you've learned something, and thanks for watching.